Hi, I'm Jeff, the head of environmental research and analytics at Waste Analytics. In this video, I'm going to walk through and explain why waste is a material ESG issue and a material financial issue that should be taken into account by the investment community. The first thing to point out is that nearly all environmental issues are due to improperly managed wastes. If we look at Sustainable Development Goals, SDG 12, which covers responsible consumption and production, states that we should achieve the environmentally sound management of chemicals and waste throughout their life cycle in accordance with agreed upon international frameworks and significantly reduce their release to air, water, and soil in order to minimize their adverse effects and impacts on human health and the environment. It also encourages companies, especially large and transnational companies, to adopt sustainable practices and to integrate sustainability information into their reporting life cycles. For oil and gas wastes, or upstream wastes, those can be categorized into three main buckets: either produced water, drilling waste, or other associated wastes. Drilling waste, which is the drilling muds and the cuttings that are generated when a new wellbore is drilled into the subsurface. I've got another video that I've produced that explains a little bit more and goes into more detail about how drilling waste are generated. So if you're interested in taking a look, feel free to go watch that video. Drilling waste is the largest solid waste stream that's generated by upstream oil and gas exploration and production companies. Reporting should be based on the waste type, the volume or the tonnage, or essentially the quantity of waste that's being generated, as well as the management method that the companies use in order to manage and dispose of those wastes. In some cases, drilling waste is considered to be a hazardous waste, and if you look at what the United Kingdom and the European Commission for oil-based drilling waste, they consider those to be hazardous. However, in the United States, oil and gas and exploration and production waste has been exempt from those federal hazardous waste regulations, meaning that throughout the U.S., each individual state comes up with its own rules and how that material should be managed. So there's quite a bit of variability on how companies are managing waste, partly due to the costs and the liabilities that are associated with that and those companies' opinions as to those costs and liabilities, and also partly due to the regulations and how those regulations change from one state to the other. Anytime you look at a waste and you're trying to determine whether it's going to be a material issue for the company that you're looking at, you need to first determine the quantity of waste that's generated and what the contaminants and the potential risks and liabilities are for those wastes. Contaminants that are found in these cuttings can either be salts, heavy metals, hydrocarbons, or other unknown and emerging contaminants. Those unknown and emerging contaminants can either be introduced into the waste stream through the formations that we're drilling through, or through drilling fluid additives. Currently, especially in the U.S., there are no restrictions on the additives that can be added to drilling fluid. Oil-based cuttings, for example, are often drilled with a drilling fluid whose primary phase is diesel. So you're going to have a lot of diesel that's left on those cuttings. When you're drilling with water-based fluids, particularly once we get into deeper, longer wellbores, there's a lot of other chemicals that are added to those drilling fluids in order to make sure that they have the properties that the drillers need from a technical perspective. Either way, those waste needs to be managed accordingly, otherwise it opens the company up to potential liabilities. So when we look at drilling waste in particular, one thing that we have identified is that the quantity of drilling waste that's generated each year in the United States is comparable to the quantity of fly ash that's generated each year. Fly ash is often considered a material issue for the companies that generate it. If we compare drilling waste and fly ash, not only do we see that they have similar quantities that are generated each year, we also see that the contaminants that are within drilling waste are very similar to that within fly ash, with the exception that drilling waste also has hydrocarbons, or TPH, as well as chlorides and other salts in much higher concentrations than what you would expect to see in a fly ash. Next, we need to look at how drilling waste is managed. In the U.S., drilling waste is managed either through burial, land application, road application, landfilling, injection, or recycling. So, what makes drilling waste a material issue? First of all, drilling waste is and has been poorly managed, and it does have the potential to cause environmental harm to soil and water. It can have to be cleaned up at some point in time, either by the oil companies that generated the waste or by society. Additionally, you cannot legally pollute regardless of the disposal method that you're using. In many states, the disposal methods that companies are using are perfectly legal. However, if you look at Railroad Commission Rule 8, which governs the disposal of drilling waste, Rule 8 specifically says that companies shall not pollute. So if that waste is shown to be polluting at some point in the future, those companies will be liable. There are various types of environmental liabilities according to the Financial Accounting Standards Board. Those can be broken into either asset retirement and environmental obligations under ASC 410 or environmental loss contingencies, or ELCs, under ASC 450-20. AREOs can be further broken down into either asset retirement obligations, or AROs, which is ASC 410-20, or environmental remediation liabilities, ERLs, which is ASC 410-30. Determining which standard to use when accounting for drilling waste liabilities depends on each accounting standard, the laws of each state regarding pollution and site restoration, and the management method used for each type of drilling waste from each well. We can also see from current SEC 10K language by various oil companies that any changes in laws will result in material issues for those companies. An example from Comstock Resources states that environmental laws and regulations have been subject to frequent changes over the years, and the imposition of more stringent requirements could have a material adverse effect upon their capital expenditures. Further, the U.S. EPA is required to review and potentially revise at least once every 3 years the Subtitle D federal criteria which governs oil and gas waste. So although that waste may be exempt from hazardous waste regulations currently, there's no guarantee that oil and gas waste, particularly drilling waste, will continue to be exempt going forward. So given all of that information, it's clear to see how waste is both environmentally material as well as financially material to the companies that are generating that waste. And so it's important for you to be able to include that information and that understanding of how that waste is managed, how it's generated by each of these companies into your investment research in order to account for the potential risk and liabilities that those companies face regarding those wastes. As always, you can reach out to us at info@wasteanalyticsllc.com, and I hope that I've been able to explain a little bit more about how waste is both financially and environmentally material.